feed herself as soon as the houseboys came to throw her out on the street. He had done this, the Earl of Ashby. He had let this happen to her father, warning him too late, taking no precautions to protect those less fortunate than himself. If she had told anyone of her hatred of a man she'd never met, she would have been informed it was ludicrous, irrational. But then again, she had no one to confide in. Besides, there was no one else left to shoulder the blame. Suddenly she was overcome with the desire to make him feel as terrible as he was, overcome with the need to spit in his face and make him recognize that other people existed in the world, that actions, or lack thereof, had consequences. She stood abruptly, marching over to the little desk under the window. It was stocked with paper and fresh ink, as all the rooms were at the school. The supplies might have been placed there for the rich, spoiled girl who would occupy the room next, but at this moment they still belonged to Phoebe. She lit a candle, the weak light of dawn not enough for what she must do. She sat, placed pen to page. Sir, this will be a short letter. I have little time to write and not much to say, other than... Phoebe was just signing her name at the bottom when the knock came. It was short, direct. It did not frighten, but it offered no sympathy. Nor did the woman who let herself inside. "Miss Baker," Miss Earhart said calmly, "it is time to go." Phoebe sprinkled the sand on the page, folded it neatly, and wrote the direction, as best she could guess, on the front. "Phoebe," Miss Earhart repeated. "Did you hear me?" "Yes, Miss Earhart," Phoebe replied obediently. "As you said, it is time to go." Phoebe took the candle in hand, let its wax drip onto the paper, making a seal. Finally, she rose from her desk and turned to face the cursed woman. Miss Earhart stood in the centre of the room, her stillness presenting an outward sense of calm that made Phoebe want to rage and scream. But there was nothing to rage and scream about any more. Behind the teacher stood two houseboys, gruff and mute, ready to force her out if she put up any resistance. "Where are they taking me?" Phoebe asked, nodding to the two men servants. "They will drive you as far as the Brighton Road in the cart. There is an inn at the cross-section," Miss Earhart answered evenly. Ah, yes, the inn, where parents stayed while visiting their daughters. Phoebe would not be able to afford a single night there with the coins in her pocket, such did the innkeepers gouge their patrons. "And where do I go after that?" "Wherever you like," Miss Earhart answered. And that was the difficulty. Phoebe had nowhere to go. Her father's relatives were thousands of miles away in America. She had never met them. She would have to write, tell them of his death, and her mother's family would sooner spit on her than take her in. She must have looked pitiful, because for the first time in the past 2 acrimonious months, Miss Earhart showed her some pity. "If you find you do not know where to go, I have a suggestion." Miss Earhart reached into the folds of her school-issued plain grey gown. "This is the direction of a family near Portsmouth. They are in dire need of a governess for their 3 little girls, and asked me for a recommendation. I told them about you." Phoebe's head whipped up. A governess?" "You are good with the younger students. I have written you a fine reference, and I forced Mrs. Beveridge to do the same. They are expecting you. If you want the position, that is." I don't understand." Phoebe looked down at the note in Miss Earhart's hand. "What do you mean you forced Mrs. Beveridge?" Miss Earhart just snorted. "If it was up to her, you would have been thrown out 2 months ago. You're lucky to have stayed here this long. I taught you what I could in that little time." Phoebe felt the ground spinning. Then suddenly everything locked into place. She had been pulled out of her beloved painting lessons, out of dance class, not as punishment, not to be kept away from her former friends. Instead, it had been to learn something far more valuable: how to teach. And Phoebe instantly knew how far she had fallen in the world. She was not a pampered, loved daughter destined for a shining future. No, she was destined to be a governess. Her eyes fell to the letter in her hand. Her knuckles went white, she gripped it so tightly. Her life altered irrevocably because of one man's carelessness. I know this is not easy.